What's good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I'm going to be breaking down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar thus far and what you should be watching for as time goes on, and also some very important levels to be watching for. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 6 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you guarantee 20 free stocks plus 6 months of level 2 data. And putting in $25,000 or more gets you 70 free stocks plus 12 months of level 2 data. This offer ends in just about 11 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So, when it comes to the market thus far, I just want to mention that NIO is down 3.35% as of right now. However, I just want to mention that NIO is not necessarily dead. It's not necessarily going to sink way harder from here because it's clear to me that it tried to base at the $7 area. Now, for the time being, we could see the market slow it down a little bit more just temporarily, but I think that NIO has a very, very nice push coming towards the end of the year, especially as we approach NIO Day on December 23rd. But the question is, what's going to happen for tomorrow specifically? How could the market affect NIO? We have a lot of important data coming out in the morning. First and foremost, we have the non-farm payrolls and unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is going to be the most important piece of data, and these other payrolls. This is coming out an hour before the market opens. This will give us a gauge of how the economy is doing. So watch that all very, very carefully with all this data dropping. Then we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report at 10 o'clock a.m., the 5-year inflationary expectations report, and the consumer sentiment all coming out at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's pretty much it for the data. So make sure you watch for the employment numbers an hour before market open. Then we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report. The unemployment rate is going to be very important. This could cause a big move in the markets, so watch that very carefully. As far as NIO goes, the news is coming out that NIO is considering more job cuts after shredding 10% of their staff thus far. And they're considering this because of the fact that they're trying to become more efficient and reduce costs accordingly. On top of all of this, as I mentioned yesterday, NIO, the ET5 Touring, got an excellent product design award. That's a German design award, and that's good news for them. Volume is still at 63 million, well above average, and still trying to maintain these high levels of volume. Nothing's changing in terms of data. But just know that Fridays have a tendency of being green about 53% of the time, and we tend to see more volatility at 11 and also around 2 p.m. for NIO. But now let's break down the charts and what's happening with NIO. NIO is down about 3.35% for the day. It's just barely holding support at the 7.5 area. But I just want to call out something very important about the markets. The market could try to pop and drop, or maybe even drop from here based on what we're seeing. So just be a little bit careful when it comes to the way that you're trading. But I don't think it's going to be a big drop because the real move is going to be determined by next week. So what does this mean? Basically on SPY, it's very simple. If we're bullish, you want to see SPY basically break. Hold on 1 second, guys. I think I need to fix my pointer. But anyways, when it comes to the way that SPY is moving, if you're bullish, you want to see it try to break 460. Every time we come between 458 and 460, we do have a tendency to see SPY reject. But to be bullish, you want to see it do something like this. So far, it looks unlikely since we don't have a major catalyst just yet. Unless we do break 460, I will turn bullish. But what I think is more probable is this thing either may top, maybe because it hit like 459 today, but the top could be between 459 and 460. There's a very good chance that we might just see a very healthy pullback, maybe starting on Friday, if not by Monday. We might see SPY come back down to test this support, come back down to fill this gap down here. There's a good chance that that could play out, and then it could bounce. And then we're going to see the real move on Tuesday determined by CPI. CPI will either cause this thing to break 460 or even start tanking, and it's going to be determined by CPI from there. So what are the likely possibilities? Either we break 460 and turn bullish, or we just reject in this range over the next 2 trading days. We could see the market try to hold up tomorrow since we have a lot of options expiring. But don't forget that by Monday, I wouldn't be surprised if we get one more little pullback as they try to grab some liquidity. Not to mention the fact that we have this unfilled gap on SPY. We have a big gap below. It's very close to where we are. So I think we might fill that gap right before CPI. And I think that's, there's a potential shorting opportunity here, but just be very careful. Not financial advice, but just be careful because if it breaks 460, it could just turn around. So we'll have to see if that's the case, but it's very probable that SPY may pop and drop. On Tesla, we may see something very similar where Tesla basically kind of like continues to consolidate sideways, might actually backtest this trend line at this 238 area, but it's been on a massive uptrend over the last couple of weeks. If you just look at the chart and zoom out like this, you can see the green line has been our support. We've been continuing to hold it. So I think there's a good chance that the red line right here is like the bearish case, and the green line here is like the more bullish case. I think the bullish case could end up playing out for next week. We could get a little pullback on Tesla though temporarily. It might just like pop and drop and just trade sideways for a while before we see a really big move after CPI. So watch it possibly retest 238 before bouncing. It might pop a little bit more, try to push up a little bit higher towards like 244 to 245, come back down, retest the trend line at 238, and just continue to trade in its range, at least for the time being. For the QQQ, I just want to mention that the QQQ has two possibilities. I see that either it's going to try to break 391 for one more push up, maybe consolidate up here tomorrow between 391 and 393. And there might be one more little pullback coming because, once again, we have this gap that's unfilled way down here. There could be one more pullback right before FOMC, like this, going into like CPI. But it wouldn't make sense for it to just like, push up that much. What else could happen is 391 is the temporary top, and we just start pulling back like this going into Monday for a very temporary pullback before a nice bounce right before CPI. So we'll just have to see what CPI causes, but just be open minded just to be safe. On Nvidia, I just want to mention that Nvidia is looking a little weak. It is trying to break 465. It hasn't officially broken yet, but one could interpret this as a rising wedge. So just be a little careful with this, at least for the time being. Nvidia is uptrending. There's no sign of it breaking down yet. So we'll see what happens tomorrow with all the data that's dropping. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see this wedge play out. So it could push a little higher. We could see this thing get very close to 470 and then reject. So watch that very carefully just to see if that ends up being the case. And then if we do end up getting a rejection, there could be another accumulation once again to the downside. Since NVIDIA technically has this gap down here, since we actually closed down here, we still have a gap technically, and we'll see if this ends up being where NVIDIA ends up opening towards. We will see how NVIDIA does right over there. We could see this once again just continue to consolidate and come back down for one more liquidity grab before we get a bigger move after CPI. So I think NVIDIA could pop a little bit more and then reject and come back down for another accumulation. So we'll be watching that very carefully. And then finally, for Apple, before I talk about NIO, Apple, in my opinion, it looks to me like there are two possibilities on Apple. Either it backtests this like 195 area and then starts kind of coming down a bit towards 192.5 before it bounces again later on. Maybe by Monday that could end up being the case, or we could get one more breakout. If we break 195 and we just continue to hold it, I'm going to be anticipating it to go up to between 196 and 197, a little bit higher, and then come back down one more time for a final drop before CPI. And then CPI will determine if we end up getting like a big bounce or not. But this is another possibility. I just wanted to note this. I would love to see a little cool off first, maybe starting on Monday. Could happen like in the second half of Friday, if not by Monday, and then we'll just see how it goes after that. But anyways, that's pretty much it, at least for the time being. Now let's talk about NIO. How could NIO react to all of this? Well, I think that NIO is going to follow the trend most likely. We have a 4-hour crossover on the PPO. We might see NIO rebound towards 7.75, then reject and make its way back down towards the 50 EMA at 7.5. And if that fails us, it's going to start sinking right down towards 7.25. So look for a little pop and then a drop back down. We have a 4-hour crossover on the PPO, and then that could lead to a little bit more downside. So I think that that's very probable. That's a real possibility. A little pop and drop. And with that being said, I think that that's what NIO is likely going to do. On the daily time frame, I just want to call out something else. On the daily, NIO is also looking a little weak on the daily time frame. So a little pop and drop seems very probable. We have this gap to fill down here at the 7.33 area. That's why I think that NIO could pop and drop and eventually fill this gap or come down to like 7.25 and then try to bounce off of that. But I once again find that to be very probable for NIO, and then we'll see how it goes from there. But anyways, guys, that's what I have for this video. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope this video brought value into your guys' lives. I just want to keep this one short and simple. NIO might have a little bit of a pullback coming, but don't worry, guys. I think that starting next week, there could be some more upside coming. I think that NIO could once again try to bounce. And I think that approaching December 23rd, NIO has even more upside coming. All right, guys, that's it for this one. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day and peace out.